Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. It is quite daunting to speak immediately after Rajendra sir. He's an inspiration to all of us, especially to me and my organization, because we work in a similar space, and what we try to do in our limited manner, we get a lot of hope and inspiration from the work that is done by people like him. So I've always been, I think there was earlier a reference to Mahatma Gandhiji's few quotations and the work, the inspiration from him too. So my personal mantra has always been, be the change you want to see. A kind of simple one-line understanding of if there is something that I don't believe in or don't see going right, I would like to be the one to change it. And I'd like to be the one to start the change within myself. I also like to talk about what my experience. I have been through the gamut of having done my management from IIM Ahmedabad, one of the premier business schools in India. Also had worked with 26, 27 years in the private sector, primarily in the food, agri, and retail space. So you could say the modern businesses, so to speak. And then did a full circle to try to question, why am I doing what I'm doing? And can there be a better way I can do things? And is there something that doesn't appeal at a spiritual level? And that started my journey into looking at where we originate from and how far we have come down the line. So this conference is all about education. In the morning we spoke a lot about skills and education. I would like to kind of put it out here that I think living with nature, respect for nature is a skill that needs to be inculcated or revived at school level or primary school level or absolute primary education level. So if kids are too far away from an understanding of what nature is all about. So I think probably progressive innovation could be thinking about introducing sustainability as a curriculum within schools, nature living or respect for nature as part of the curriculum, not looking at it in terms of subjects like biology or botany or whatever else pieced out, but a holistic understanding of ourselves and our relationships with habitats around us. I like to say always that the world needs a reset button. We desperately need a reset button. Some things worked at some point in time. That was the thinking of those days. That was the management practices of those days. But somewhere along the way, we seem to have upset the rhythm and gone too far in our adversity. So too far in our adversity to not recognize where collaboration with nature has actually become a conflict with nature, and how we can actually try to see where there can be a more collaborative working relationship with nature than a conflictive kind of relationship. Recently we had a very passionate young lady, Greta, and her words thundering in our ears across the world. How dare you? How dare you? She said it a number of times, how dare you? I think that passion is something that needs to reverberate within all of us in terms of what is it that we can reset? We all have our reset buttons in our hands. It's within our individual and collective hands and what we can do about it. So essentially I'm giving the context to where I started from and where I've reached, having seen both sides of the coin. Another of Gandhiji's quotes, the earth has enough for man's needs but not for his greed. I think these are also many kind of philosophical questions, uncomfortable though they are. Greta's words are uncomfortable. What Gandhiji said so many years ago is uncomfortable, but that discomfort needs to be borne for us to be able to look at where do we put man's ingenuity, the human resource, the innovations, the intellectual thinking, which direction can that go in here on, rather than business as usual. So, some of the things that my organization, India Foundation for Humanistic Development, IFHD, we try to do is our vision is simple: to rejuvenate productive landscapes sustainably and equitably. And I think the two key words, it starts with a belief, a humanistic belief system, which says every landscape is productive. It starts with the presumption or the assumption that every landscape is productive. I'm not saying physical landscape. It's basically a spiritual landscape, an emotional landscape, human landscape, physical landscape. All dimensions of landscape, they are productive by nature. But somewhere along the way, systems that have broken need to be reset. And so we look at rejuvenating these in a sustainable and equitable manner. There's growing inequity, no escaping the fact that there is growing inequity. What is that capitalist system that brought a stage where 5 to 8 people in the world feel the need to give away 80 to 90%, 98% of the wealth they have generated? What is that system that created this kind of a situation that says that 8 people control the bulk of the world's wealth and are in a position to say, I will give away this much? Why even give away? Why even earn that what you could give away so much? So there is these, at a very existential level, we all need to question at some point in time and start questioning that immediately. How much are we taking from our future? So, with the vision of rejuvenating productive landscapes equitably and sustainably, we look at how do we value assets. The current system of economic capital being the sole capital for valuation of any asset in the world. There are other capitals that have disappeared from our so-called balance sheets. There's nature capital, there is social capital, there's human capital. Human capital, yes, it's recognized in terms of some form or the other by corporates, in terms of the business, in terms of what people produce, labor produces, etc. So there's a value to it. But what about nature capital? What about social capital? These are things that do not feature in our balance sheets. So what is it that we can do to restore this balance back? So there is also the question of innovations in leaving no one behind, which addresses the inequity. Leaving no one behind, looking at communities that are hard facing climate change. Climate change is not going to spare any one of us. That is visible and known. The planetary boundaries define that. But it hits us the last. So which are the communities hard-facing climate realities, and what can be done to build their resilience? At what point in time do we say that communities that live a de facto sustainable lifestyle, why can't they be paid for ecosystem services? Why can't they be paid in some form? Why can't there be a nature capital value given to what they do when they live around their forest habitats, where they conserve habitats? Why can't, or they practice sustainable agriculture, or they conserve and protect their rivers, their lands, their forests, their soils, their air? What is it that, what system can be put in place? What economic system can be put that pays for ecosystem services provided by these communities? I have more questions, but respect for and value for commons, respect for community, value to commons and communities. Also, payment for indigenous knowledge, payment for indigenous farming systems. Why is everything looked at from the point of scale? Like I said, it was a product or it was a practice of the times. We have gone behind. So why not look at what I recently heard, DMDRE, which is what we are doing in India in one of our programs. DMDRE is the concept where distributed manufacturing in using decentralized renewable energies. So looking at moving production of value addition back to or closer to source, and looking at communities that add value, and looking at aggregation in terms of technologies that aggregate and scale, but not looking at trucking tons and tons of raw material produced in some corner, taking it to some centralized facility, adding carbon miles, all in the name of efficiency, when you have not factored in the cost, that how inefficient it is on nature and the use of nature's resources. So these are things that we need to keep asking ourselves, and we do that through some of our programs as IFHD. We have 3 programs which we run. I had a presentation, but I would not run that. One is called PROSIF, which is Producer Catalyst and Incubation Facility. It is a innovative, a unique concept across the world. It's a pilot we have worked with Pan-India in 18 states, wherein we run a doorstep rural business incubator for farmer producer collectives and for agri-MSMEs. Here we follow the route of DMDRE, and we follow the route of using collectives as bringing scale to and scales and efficiencies in the agri-value chain. We have another program, Pro Habitat, which promotes habitats in sensitive, distressed landscapes like the Western Ghats. We all know the challenges that the Western Ghats face in terms of the degradation, the loss of forest cover, the loss of wetlands. So we run conservation programs within the wetlands, within the Western Ghats, coastal ecosystem and forest ecosystem. And there we look at, again, communities. So we help the communities co-design livelihood projects or livelihood interventions that keep conservation as their main income earning plank. And through that process, we are piloting this concept of payment for ecosystem services. We have another program called ProRasa, Promoting Resilient and Sustainable Agriculture. This looks at building the agency and capacity of smallholder farmers, restoring their traditional knowledge, and bringing a more resilient form of agroecological or agroforestry-based farming systems, livestock, multiple diverse cropping systems to help bring resilience into those communities, to help adapt to climate change, and then to look at what is it that we look at in terms of what we need to grow food. We need soil, water, air, and good quality seeds. So we focus on these 4 aspects: soil, water, air, seeds. We focus on these to build capacity and agency of smallholder farmers across India. So thank you very much for listening to me.